Hello, happy taxpayers.
Hello,
How
hello.
you all doing?
What up? What up?
Welcome to
Doing,
the
bud?
Universal Audio booth. We have, at this
Shay.
present moment, Shay Pope,
Yeah, nice.
who came to talk to us about his process and making music and the joy and techniques of making music.
Yeah.
The first thing we're going to do, well, Shay is a music producer. He works with some of the people mentioned next to his fantastic picture up there. Bunch of beginners, as you can see. I have here a great track. So now what we're going to do, we're going to switch to Logic.
Yeah.
And this track is the Mariam track.
Yeah.
And
A quick intro. This is sort of a jazz fusion artist from Senegal. So I was introduced to her from a guy who runs the music department at a film studio. And I was just kind of like, she's just really captivating. I can imagine it's like when someone first met Nina Simone. Like you meet these artists that are like, yo. So I didn't honestly know. It was very challenging because it was like sonically, I didn't know what to do with it. So I just pictured her performing live. And that's with like in a small club, like intimate club, a few people drinking wine. And that's what this is where this track came from.
one more side note that I think is important. What Shay just said is super crucial. We're actually discussing that earlier with friends. Hear what he just said. He met the artist. Before he went to the track, he didn't think, oh, I'm going to use machine for the drums. He thought, I'm picturing this artist in a small club. See the art. That's why you're going to get the vibe from the track, because everything comes from the spirit in which the track was created. It's not just screwing around with a bunch of plugins. That's not the spirit. The spirit is to create an emotion. That's why this man is successful.
Yeah.
Let's listen to it raw.
Vocals are still scratched, to her credit. She's still writing.
So you have a window into the process in real time.
I'm not changing for you to want me, but I'm not changing.
Yeah.
Our sun can't shine no more. Love is not conditional. Love is not a phrase. Love has history that already written. When you came to me, my world never was the same. You built your world inside and rolled me into clay.
She's still writing, so. But the music is done.
I'm not changing for you to want me, but I'm not changing. I'll never be your toy. I'm not changing. I can't turn no more. I'm not changing. I know about the love.
Right, so isn't that awesome? So you got it that this is a total work in progress. You're actually looking at the production session, not mixed. There's not even all the lyrics because there's some lyrics she hasn't written yet. So you're really catching this 60% through,
Yeah.
maybe 70% through, which is a privilege to be able to look into how somebody can pull something like this together. So let's talk about, we were chatting on the side, let's talk about like how you integrate the Apollo in your creative process and the plugins in your creative process. I
Yeah,
noticed that you're using a lot of Logic instruments, like standard instruments.
Yeah, see, this is one of the things I like about the UAD. See, I came in the game when it was still like tape machines, and so a lot of the plugins that they have are they've done the best emulations of the real thing. So when I first started with plugins, I just used the stuff I was familiar with, meaning like, Neves and, all your, like, let's see what I'm using in here. Let's see. I'm using, if you're looking, I'm using
1176 and LA2.
Yeah, I'm using 1176s. I'm using.
You love the Studer too.
Yeah, I'm using the Studer is like one of my main things because tape machine. I started with that.
This thing.
But like I didn't get into some of these more sophisticated things till I started exploring. So, and what I mean by that is, I didn't use plugins as like, I guess like a standard person who had proper engineering training would use and this and that. I use it still as a creative, as part of my chalkboard. So I use it in the process, the creative process of what I'm creating. So I'll take a standard Logic instrument and I'll try it through different things, and all of a sudden it brings new life, and I've got this new thing to me that was like actually pretty boring to me. No disrespect to Logic, but it was pretty just straightforward and pretty boring. And now I've got this thing that's come to life and it's exciting, and I want to use. So I use different factory instruments probably far more than a lot of people do, because I use different UAD plugins that I've explored with, and they brought my production to life. So I didn't just use it as an end finishing tool. I literally used it as I'm creating and as I'm writing. So I think that's where I'm a little different than a lot of people use it. Coming into the box, I use the console as a console. I'm recording through things. So you hear on that particular track, you hear live percussion. I have a Latin percussion player playing it. This amazing guy, Aponte. So I'm using different plugins as I'm bringing them in. I'm using tape already. I'm using, Neves, but I'm also experimenting with, things that you use them in unusual ways, like Shadow Hill's compressors and stuff like that, which is a mastering compressor, but I'm using it on a particular instrument in a track because it's bringing some vitality to something I'm doing. So,
What Shane is mentioning when he's talking about the console is when you work with Apollo, there's an input console. I don't think it's open. Yes, it is. There's an input console to Apollo. And you can actually insert plugins on this console right here, and those plugins happen to be real time with no latency, as if you had the hardware. It's the same as having these boxes, except they cost a lot less. You can have as many as you want, and they come in this little box, which is nice.
Yeah, so if you're just recording in your home, to have like a rack of this stuff, that's $20,000, $30,000, right? And you can have an Apollo for, I don't know what it is, whatever the price point is, and plugins like that, and you're recording guitars or whatever, vocalists right in your house, and you're getting that type of quality. That's like unheard of. I do a lot of the stuff you hear, and I do in hotel rooms. I travel a lot around the world. I'm on the road. So it's the best thing ever when you're in your hotel room, and you can still do stuff like you're in the studio. You know what I mean? You're not having a quality loss, which used to be the problem back in the day. You got to do something in a hotel room. It sounded like I was in a hotel room, and I had to do the exact same thing when I got to the studio. But now I can do, literally, I'm in hotel rooms in Bangkok, and I'm writing for, I just finishing Christina Aguilera's album right now, and I'm doing Christina Aguilera things in a hotel room in Bangkok, so, and that's because this is amazing, and honestly, it's the quality, it's like we can use a million plugins from all different ways. It doesn't matter when at the end, the finished result is what you're trying to do. You're trying to make your songs, you're trying to write amazing songs, and you're trying to make the song sound amazing, so when you put it out, when you guys hear it, you're like, wow, this sounds, you know what I mean? And that's what's so great about, I wouldn't be up here if it, like, I only like endorse or talk about things I really use, and that's why I'm so passionate about these products.
What he said. So, so for example, the Studer, I use the shade out of the Studer myself, but you use it in a very different way. You push it really, really, really hard. So what does it do for you? What do you use the Studer like that for?
So anyone who is familiar with tape knows that you can hit tape really hot. And when you hit tape really hot, it gives you that, even though I do all sorts of music, this is sort of jazz, Latin fusion, hip hop thing. Everything with me is hip hop. And the one thing I learned about hip hop early on is hit tape hard. And when you hit tape hard, that's where you get that knock. We call it the knock. And it doesn't matter what genre of music I'm doing, pop, if I'm doing something for a film score, I still have that mentality, I want the knock. So that's why I use the Studer, and that's why I hit it hard. That's why I use a lot of the Studer and a lot of times with a Neve. Those are like my two favorite things if you're talking, especially if we're talking about drums.
Yep.
But that would be one of my signature tricks.
Yeah,
and hit it hot.
Yeah, you can hit the Neve preamps very hard and not need compression for drums. Like if you feel like sticking around up until 4, I'll show you how you can create a live drum sound with a real drummer that sounds like as if it were programmed and really hitting hard with no compression, just by pushing those Neve 1073s. 4 p.m. But right now we're talking about this. So I love what you do with the Studer. Did you notice when the chorus came in how hard it felt and how like just pushing it felt and everybody started just like rocking, right? Well, check this out. This is where's the chorus? There. Okay, check this out. This is the Studer that's on the 2 mix.
I'm not changing.
Yeah, so you can see how hot.
It's a little hot, yeah.
It's just a little hot, just a little. But I will literally push something to see where I'm at the limits.
So now, in theory, this is punishable by death in some states, okay? But what happens if you remove it? Oh, that's right. It's Logic, not Pro Tools. I gotta tell it to go back. Here we go. Check it out.
I'm not changing.
And you just see how like dead it sounds.
For you.
It ain't the same. We need to beat the hell out of that Studer. With
I'm not changing. For you to want me, boy.
And
That's
what else
badass.
is great about the Studer, they actually did some really amazing presets in it. So you really, I mean, you could dial it in yourself and really perfect it. But, I primarily use the jazz one and the dancehall one. But the dancehall one itself, it just immediately gives you this vibe. And like, look, when you're creating the music, to just instantly get a vibe while you're creating it is amazing. So I probably would say this particular one has the jazz setting on it, pushed really hard, but I also use the dancehall setting quite a bit.
and so you put this on at the beginning when you start writing. You have this at all times.
Yeah, well, off and on.
Yeah.
Like I'm catching, like when I'm creating, I'm looking for I think like everyone who's here as a songwriter, you're looking for a vibe.
Uh-huh.
And you're catching it, oh, cool, now I got a vibe. And then I can really go from there. So I would say I primarily really, really love the dancehall setting, but I would suggest going through them all and then playing around with your own and making your own presets,
That's pretty nice. So when the bongos come on at the end, those are real bongos, right?
Yes.
So, but if you look at them, where are they? I think this is them,
Sorry, yeah, if we go.
right? Is this them?
Or if we change, I have to look at this.
So,
Yeah, that's it.
so there's almost nothing here, but that's, do you remember you made it sound like this?
Yes.
You do, fantastic. How did you make it sound like this?
So there's 2 ways. One of the things you can't see is when I recorded them in through an SSL channel. So that's just because that's what I would really do. Sometimes if I'm in the real studio and I'm just recording somebody, I might record them in flat. I don't use too much processing on the front end because I still like the rawness of the sound, but I want it through something that's really, and one of the things that's great about SSLs, and I got to shout out Dre's engineer, Vito, because a lot of this I learned from Dre and Dre's engineer when I used to work with Dre. Dre at one point in time had an SSL in his house. So he mastered the SSL. So he would just use the SSL pre. So that was one of the things that just got fixated in my head. So I used the SSL coming in. But there's also this 610 that so I got it in nice and hot and I got them in clean how I wanted it. But now I still wanted them, I wanted them, excuse my cursing, I wanted them to hit hard. I wanted them to feel. I wanted them, it's a session in the song that comes out of nowhere. Same thing. If we're back in the club and we're in this live intimate, I wanted all of a sudden the percussion player to get the light on them and the song comes to life. So that's what that plugin does for me. It brings, even though I got the percussion in how I wanted it, and I didn't really want too much processing on it after that. I just wanted it to come to life, and that's why I brought the 610 in. And that actually, to be honest with you, took quite a bit of experimenting because I was trying a bunch of different things and I wasn't getting what I wanted until I arrived at, I really just wanted it to come to life, but I didn't want too much EQ and anything else happen. I really wanted the natural feel and sound of what was played and performed.
The 610 is the UAD emulation of the UA 1950 something tube preamp that was in the legendary UA console back in the day. These consoles sell for like $200,000-$300,000 these days, but there were only like 7 or 10 of them. It's like a very rare thing. So they recreated the preamp, and they have some since they are UA. You know what I mean? So they have those preamps,
Yeah.
and they actually modeled them exclusively. I use it a lot in unison.
You do?
Oh yeah, man! It sounds great in unison. It makes the microphone just bloom right away. It cuts down on processing after drastically.
And I think for me, it is a perfect example of it. I wasn't familiar with the history of this board or any of that. I just was trying different things to try to hear. You know what I mean? And it was literally all about what I was hearing. And that's what won the lottery, if you expect.
Yeah, this is an amazing plugin, one of the best ones they have. So you seem to use the Helios console also quite a bit.
Yeah.
Is that also because you just put it up and you like the way it sounds?
Well, I got George Martin's book and a while back, and I read one of his books. Then I got the Beatles sessions, and obviously a lot of things they did were just straight through the Helios console.
Yep.
So I would say that's one of the first plugins I got when I first got my first Twin. It was literally, I probably had whatever the basic plugin package came, and literally one of the first purchases I made was the Helios plugin. So I experimented a lot with it, so I'm very familiar with it because, when you have limited plugins and you don't have that much, you really work on dialing in, and that's one of the ones I spent a lot of time with.
Yeah. So the reason why this is important is because when, as I found out afterwards, just like you just found out with the 610, when they model equipment, they actually model every component of the equipment. So even if you put the Helios flat with no EQ, you still get the sound of the Helios channel processing, which in itself has a sound. It's actually a big part of the song, as big part of the sound as the EQing. And very often you could put, say, the 1176, for example, and just leave it flat and not use any compression.
Yeah.
And it sounds bananas. It just has that thing that it does,
Yeah.
that digital can't do. Digital is a mirror. So this is an interesting choice because this sounds very fat,
Yeah.
And you can push it into it really hard.
And for especially for like more of the urban, more of the rock guys and pop guys may be more familiar with the Helios and the Helios boards, but utilized with really just spending some time with it, because it's not going to be something you're going to immediately say, oh, okay, cool. If you compare it, like he said, to an 1176, which is something more MPCs or drums are used to, but if you spend time with it, you can actually really get some amazing sounds out of it.
You can make it do tricks.
Yeah, and I just challenge the people to explore more with what you're doing. I mean, everyone has their go-tos, but if you don't explore, you won't realize the power of some of these things, and then you'll be like, oh my God, like it'll change your life, really, literally.
Yes, this thing is fantastic. There was another one. So you use this really quite a bit because you dialed it in, and there was this other thing you did. So like on the Liverpool bass, you use this guy, the 1176.
1176, what I would say, is also one of my, just literally, that would be one of my go-tos. So the 1176, the Neve, 1073s, those are like my just staples. Those are, and obviously it's an industry standard, but just, I don't care what genre of music you're using, I feel like you should have an 1176 somewhere in there, because it just really, when at the end of the day, we're trying to get to this end product, right? And it's going to help you, it's just going to help your stuff sound amazing. It doesn't matter what recording environment you have, and so on and so forth. Like he says, it's one of those things, you don't even have to really dial it in too much, and it's already making your sound just sound that much better and warmer, thicker, And then if you tweak it to your likings, it does some amazing things too.
The thing is that when you record straight flat digital, you get a perfect mirror of what you put in. I don't know about some of you, but myself, looking at myself in the mirror in the morning is not that much fun. It's nice to be able to put a little bit of makeup on things, right? Plus, our ears are used to a lot of processing. We listen to records that all went through 1176s and 610s and LA2s. So when you record something digital and even with super clean with a very great mic pre like this, that's not the sound that you're used to hearing on records. You don't hear that raw sound on records. You hear the sound after somebody like me or Shay has been spending a lot of time tuning it using these tools. The fact that UAD has imitated and emulated those tools so perfectly means that you can use that sound, and now you're going to recognize the sound you're used to hearing on records.
I mean, I think we all, especially all of us who use laptops and who use computers, we all have that challenge of like, wow, it sounds great, but it's so clean, it's so thin. You know, half of the battle is, how do I make this sound fuller? How do I make it sound, you know, I still listen to vinyl, I still collect vinyl, I still buy records, and I literally in my system, I don't know what everyone else uses, but I use, you know, a pair of nice monitors, and I'll play a record, and then I'll work on a track, and I'll be like, damn, it's not, you know, so I'm always trying to still fight that never-ending battle, you know, of, I don't need it to be a vinyl record, but I need it to sound just, I still need it to be something special, you know what I mean? So I'm always fighting that battle. Of this amazing gear, and you know, and this is the best weapon that I've found out there, you know.
Fantastic. So I am being gestured at that we have to stop, and also that I don't know if you noticed, but it's about 500 of you guys, and it's against the rules. So I propose that we feel the love. Be close to each other as human beings and come in a little bit so we clear the aisles so that we don't get arrested by the NAMM police.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic because I'm sure they're wonderful, the NAMM police, but we don't want to deal with them. And we have to end this now. But the good news is Shay's coming back tomorrow at 3 again. We're going to pick up where we left off. So you should come back tomorrow at 3 to hear more of this. And right now, I'd like everybody to give a big round of applause to Shay Puff for coming.
Thank you.
And sharing his wisdom with us. That was awesome, man.
All right, cool.
And hang tight because I think there's a giveaway right now. I think they're giving away a T-shirt. It's going to be awesome. You're going to love it. It's going to be great. And then Shay is going to sashay away to one of these sides, and you can ask him questions on the side. But now I have to clear the stage. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.